little bit about the whole, let's say, social environment. Okay. Yesterday we talked about the social environment out of which Nalanda grew. The pursuit for truth, for an understanding of the meaning of life. And today I thought that we would talk about the practices of the members of Nalanda. As I said yesterday, Nalanda grew out of an eclectic group of seekers, not part of any particular spiritual tradition except the tradition of seeking. However, eventually, once Nalanda was established, it was a Buddhist university, a Buddhist monastery, and the philosophical tenets, the philosophical views that were established there are seen today to be Buddhist schools of thought. There, as some of you are scholars and students of philosophy and of Indian philosophy in particular, the schools that the prevailing school, I think, initially would have been the Sautrantika view, which holds that phenomena are impermanent, fleeting, and therefore, or thereby, selfless. They lack a permanent self, but they do exist in some kind of findable, inherent way. Also evolved the view that phenomena exist having the same nature as the consciousness apprehending them. The Chittamatra, or mind-only view, which the main establisher of would have been Asanga. And there were derivatives of this view, different interpretations of this view, attributing different levels of existence to the phenomena that do exist. This is the first school is a school that we could really say accords with our way of experiencing phenomena. We can understand that though things seem to have a permanent physical quality, if we analyze, we can understand that things exist within time, and that the moment of the existence of this bottle of Aquafina now is past, and there's the existence of this bottle now, and that at each moment of my snapping my fingers, the prior moment of the existence of the bottle ceases to exist. So that sort of momentary quality of the existence of phenomena, particularly, let's say, things, has that momentary nature, has that impermanent quality. And there are considered to be two levels of impermanence. There is the gross impermanence of this room exists, and if there were to be some kind of if this were to be destroyed in some way, it would cease to exist. And so that ceasing of the existence of this room in that sort of grosser way is thought of as gross impermanence. While the existence of this room in this momentary nature way is subtle impermanence. And so this is a way of breaking down the notion that things exist in some kind of very solid way, the way we apprehend them to exist. And this would have been one of the views that was being cultivated by the scholars in Nalanda. Now, in addition to these scholars working at understanding the impermanent nature of, let's say, a river that's flowing through and that one views as the river, whatever its name may be, the Ganges, the Brahmaputra, the Kaveri, whatever that river, if you actually go and analyze it and see that the water is flowing through and that there's nothing that you can point at and say, that's the river. That fleeting nature of the existence of things is that impermanent quality of things. And this quality of impermanence, which we work at developing a familiarity with, is something that will diminish our attachment to things. I mean, as Dr. Kirkar said yesterday in her introduction, I'm a photographer. Photographers are very fond of the tools they use, cameras. And it's very easy for one to become attached to one's camera and to the latest camera. And it's interesting how this concept of impermanence is very helpful in diminishing attachment. Now, in order to even wish to diminish one's attachment to one's camera, one has to understand that there's no problem with cameras. Our attachment to things, our attachment to the camera causes us unhappiness. And so in order for us to diminish the tendency of the attachment that we might have towards something like a camera, we have to appreciate that developing this familiarity with the impermanence of the camera is going to help us be happier. Now that little line of reasoning is one that a practitioner, that one of the Nalanda monks would have engaged in his practice. And I really don't know what it is that the monks of Nalanda might have been particularly attached to. They didn't have cameras, but I'm sure they had other things. And this really helps. Whatever it is that we seek, wish for, we think of, and I'll use the example of the camera, as digital technology evolves, the marketers of these new cameras are constantly teasing one with more and more megapixels in the sensors and faster abilities to focus and all sorts of things of that nature. And when the latest has come out, there is a tendency for us to think that is going to solve all my problems. If I have that, I'll never need anything again. That'll do it in the photography department. And of course, we all know that in very little time, that becomes old, and the new thing appears. And we are tickled anew with a need for, a desire for that latest that will solve all our problems. And so it's very useful when presented with these sort of, what would you call them, little teases, little, yes, I think teases is okay, to remember this and to think, okay, I am being teased. I'm being led to believe that this is going to solve. That turned it on or off? Off. Okay. Well, very soon we will get hot, and then, and it's the same principle of impermanence, the impermanence of our state of being. So this whole concept of impermanence, as I say, if we really work at cultivating it in our perception of things, in our perception towards the outside world, we actually work at developing the muscles by which we will be more content and we will be happier. And this is a form of meditation. We talk about two kinds of meditation. One is calm abiding, or sort of focused meditation, where we work at developing a focus of our mind so that the mind doesn't wander from its object of concentration. The other form of meditation is analytical meditation. It's a meditation where we actually think through a process and come to a conclusion. And it is that form of meditation that is particularly effective in changing our minds. It is that form of meditation that, for example, one would go through in working at developing contentment with one's camera. It is that form of meditation that eventually one would apply to oneself in understanding that we are impermanent. Not in the sense that I'm going to die at some point, I don't know when, but that I am actually disintegrating, changing, moment by moment by moment. That the me that I have this sort of feeling of attachment to, the me that I identify with, that me is disintegrating or changing. It is impermanent. It is momentary. There is no me that I can point at and say, that one there is me. Because as soon as we pointed at it, it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. And I'm not saying anything that is very hidden. I'm not saying anything that is very, a profound truth. I'm saying something that's very evident. We know that when we walked into this room, the bottle of water that was sitting on this table that existed at that moment, if we think of that bottle and we think of all the moments of time that have gone from then to now, it's not the same bottle that was sitting here when we walked in. It is the result, or we can say the result, the effect of a series of moments of the existence of bottle that come all the way to the present bottle. The present bottle, which doesn't exist anymore either. And really, if we sit and meditate and think about this, and we realize that as much as we identify with a thing right there, here and now, that as soon as we have identified it, there is a new thing. There is the result of the thing that we identified as here and now, and the result of the result of, and the result of the result of the result of, that these series of moments continue in this perfectly natural way. So not only is this a philosophical view, but it is also a subject which is meditated on and which actually affects our being and our relationship to the world around us. And all the meditations that were engaged in Nalanda had relationships to the philosophies that were being not only taught, but actually discovered there. I mean, it was a place where there was, as I talked about yesterday, a thriving, living pursuit of new views, of new understandings based on what had already been recognized as, let's say, truth. So these views were not simply intellectual games or intellectual concepts that were left out there as mere intellectual concepts. They formed the basis for the meditations that were really meant to transform one. The next view that I talked about, the mind-only, the Chittamatra view of Asanga, is a view that really went a whole step further, that states that the phenomena that we apprehend, let's take the bottle of water again, exist as having the same nature as the mind that apprehends it. And so that if I look at this bottle of water, the bottle of water and my eye consciousness seeing bottle of water are of the same nature. It's now I should say that in terms of the cause and effect relationship of the bottle of water and the consciousness apprehending it, according to the Sautrantika school that I just talked about regarding impermanence, they would say that the bottle of water, that some person made the plastic bottle, or it was made in a factory, and the water is poured into it, and then it is distributed, and the Aquafina distributors here in Goa distribute the allotment to Goa University, and you put this on the table here, and this gentleman put this on the table here, and so there's a whole series of steps that have led to the bottle of water sitting on the table in front of me, which I then see. So all of those steps are the causes that bring about my perception of the bottle of water. And in terms of the immediate eye consciousness that apprehends the bottle of water, the bottle of water that I see exists immediately prior to my seeing it, because my eyesight, my visual apprehension of the bottle of water is the result of the existence of a bottle of water, right? It's a cause and effect relationship that the object that I apprehend brings about, causes my seeing it, the eye consciousness that sees it. It's a moment later, but it follows. They are not happening simultaneously. Though there continues to be a bottle of water, if we apply this idea of the impermanence of the bottle of water, there are a series of moments of bottle of water, and there are a series of moments of the eye consciousness apprehending bottle of water, and each moment of bottle of water causes the subsequent eye consciousness of bottle of water. They are a cause and effect series of moments. According to the mind-only philosophy, it doesn't work that way. The bottle of water, as I said, exists as the same nature as my perception of the bottle of water. The bottle of water exists not due to this gentleman having gotten the case of water from Aquafina and it's having been filled at the company and brought here. No, the bottle of water that I, sitting here, apprehend before me, and my eye consciousness apprehending it, my feeling consciousness feeling it, and whatever other sense organs are experiencing it. Each one and the object of its experience are one. There is no separate bottle of water from the consciousness that is apprehending it. This is the mind-only school, and it's a we can get into certain problems with it. It basically puts a lot of responsibility on the, let's say, the consciousness or the self experiencing. In other words, and then there, you all see this bottle of water, right? So I can't say that the bottle of water that you are experiencing is of the same nature as my conscious experience of it, which I said was its existed depended on, its existence was simultaneous with, because actually each of you who are experiencing this bottle of water, who are seeing it from wherever you are looking, each of you, the bottle of water that you are experiencing, and the consciousness in you that is experiencing it, are of one nature. So then, suddenly the existence of this bottle of water is due to all of your experience of it and mine. Now, what happens is that we break down the notion of some existing bottle of water independent of the consciousnesses experiencing it. However, there are still certain complications that arise, and so we talk about the individual. Each of you have your own individual relationship with the existence of this bottle of water. So in fact, it only exists for you in that it is of the same consciousness as your eye consciousness apprehending it. It only exists for you in that same way. We each have our own individual relationship with the bottle of water. And we have that same individual relationship with every phenomenon that we experience, that we interact with. Now, again, this is the subject for us to meditate on. This is the subject for us to come to understand or to explore, well, what is it that makes me experience that bottle of water? And the next person, let's say some poor thirsty person who doesn't have access to the water, why is my consciousness conjuring up or this bottle of water that I am having this visual experience of, and not someone else? That's where the mind-only school begins to introduce the concept of karma, of the causes, the karmic causes, the predispositions that by which or due to which I merit to experience water. And one thing, sorry to do this, you're all sitting there with these visual apprehensions of water, I am going to indulge in a little tasting of the water, which you can. So, now, you have all apprehended visually my pouring. Now you are seeing a bottle half full, and you're seeing a glass pretty full. And that particular visual apprehension is one that we all share. We all have the karmic predisposition to see, to experience visually the bottle half full and the glass. And I, for some karmic reason, and it's very hard to see back to see what it is that causes this, have the predisposition to be able to taste it as well. Now, if I were a really generous person, I would say, well, you may all come and taste, but I'm going to spare you. However, this is just a sort of example of the different ways in which we interact with all phenomena. I mean, we look over here and we see these maroon curtains, and we are, each of us is experiencing a curtain that is of the same nature as the eye consciousness experiencing it. And if you were sitting close and if you were to rub against it, you would be experiencing the tactile consciousness of the fabric out of which the maroon curtains are made. And that tactile consciousness of the maroon curtains would be of the same nature as the maroon curtain. In other words, there would be no independent maroon curtain, independent of your tactile sensation of it. So every phenomenon you experience is of one nature with your, exists as having the same nature as your consciousness apprehending it. That, as I say, would be a philosophical view that evolved, it was developed, it was very much defined through the debates that took place in Nalanda, and is a view that would have been really entered into in meditation, so that a monk would really explore not only the philosophical logic that this view is based on, but would also wish to have an experiential relationship to that philosophy in his meditation. And it would lead him to diminish his attachment to, diminish his belief in the physicality, the outside physicality of things, of the bottle of water, of the curtains. If we apply it to the camera, if you believe that the camera that you're experiencing, or this very nice looking Dell computer, which you might view and think, wow, that's a pretty super duper computer there, and you would have feelings of wishing for it, and if you could then think the eye consciousness that I have of that computer is of the same nature as the computer, there is no computer that exists in and of itself, and you think about the sort of karmic causes that might bring about our experiencing the eye consciousness of the computer. That whole thought process itself will diminish our attachment to, our desire for things such as computer, camera, the maroon curtains, and it doesn't seem to have diminished my desire for a little water. So this notion that things and our consciousness of them, eye consciousness, ear consciousness, smell consciousness, tactile consciousness, all the different consciousnesses. I mean, when we hear music, the music that we're experiencing is said to be of the same nature as the audible or audio consciousness experiencing it. So it's all the consciousnesses. The phenomena that we apprehend, the phenomena that we experience, the water, the curtains, the camera, the computer, are said to exist from their own side. They have a quality of intrinsic, true existence, so that this process doesn't negate the property of their existence. It is diminishing that property, but it is not negating it. It is said that, well, to use the whole sort of phraseology, the Dell computer that exists as one nature with the eye consciousness apprehending it exists. This process is not negating the existence of a Dell computer, and the Dell computer may exist separately for each of you. However, we are not, as I say, in any way negating the existence of the Dell computer. And as I said before, this particular philosophical view gives enormous importance to the consciousness that is the basis for my experiencing the Dell computer. So, as a result of this view and of its prevalence in Nalanda, and through the debating that took place challenging this view, eventually came about a view called the Madhyamika view, the middle way view, which Nagarjuna is attributed with being the establisher of. And in this view, he went back to the Sautrantika idea that things are caused by causes. The whole process by which the bottle of water actually came here is accepted as being the cause of the bottle of water being here. And in the same way, it's not that the bottle of water or the computer exist as the same nature as the consciousness apprehending it. It's not that the computer and the mind are existing simultaneously. The computer that I see, the bottle of water that I see, bring about or cause my visual apprehension of them. So Nagarjuna stuck to the old relationship between objects and our experience of them. However, he began to scrutinize the quality of existence of the phenomena that we experience. And he was saying that it was not just the fact that the computer is a product, is caused, that breaks down its the weight or the that breaks down the solidity of his existence. He began to say, he presented the notion that the computer that we are viewing, if we look among its parts, we won't find anything that is, from its own side, intrinsically a computer. what we will find is a bunch of parts which we give the nomination or the designation computer to. So that a computer is something that is designated to be or as a computer. It's not something that from its side is a computer. And this idea of how things exist really shattered all prior philosophical concepts that had developed within Nalanda. And now, I must tell you, we talked about yesterday Nalanda having been established in the 4th century. Nagarjuna's dates are 2nd century to 3rd century. So those are the kinds of things I can't address. If any of you speak Kannada, the only words in Kannada that after 38 years of living there, I have learned are Gottilla. So this Madhyamika view was later refined to, there were debates about whether things existed truly or not, and then the concept of inherent existence. There were certain followers of Nagarjuna who said, we can say that phenomena do not exist truly, but to say that phenomena do not exist inherently or intrinsically is going a bit far, because that would mean that phenomena don't exist at all. If something doesn't exist intrinsically or inherently, how can it exist? So within the debates and this is debates at the highest level between the great scholars, there was this debate about whether the idea that things did not exist inherently might be a nihilistic idea, a nihilistic view that would actually deny the existence of phenomena altogether. And the fear was, if you have a philosophical view that denies existence altogether, there is no longer the basis for understanding sort of fundamental concepts such as the laws of cause and effect, the laws of karma, which are the bedrock of not just Buddhist, but I think maybe any kind of ethical system. I mean, you can say that God did it all, but I think basically we have to assume some kind of responsibility ourselves, and the assumption of responsibility ourselves really necessitates a system of cause, karma. So within the debate about whether things existed inherently, truly, and whether the denial of inherent existence might lead to nihilism, a negation of existence altogether, was a very real one. It was not just an intellectual, conceptual one. It was that if you let go of that, if you gave up the idea of things existing in some kind of inherent way, you were basically giving up on any kind of foundation upon which some kind of structure of existence could be based. And so the view of they were called the Madhyamikas Prasangika, and they were followers of he was called Buddhapalita. Buddhapalita was one of the followers of Nagarjuna, and the one who specifically negated not just the idea that anything could exist truly, but negated the idea that anything could exist inherently. He was the one who put forward the notion that when Nagarjuna talked about things not existing, that his meaning was that things could not have any kind of independent existence whatsoever, that it was that negation of any kind of independent or inherent existence that allowed for things to exist, that allowed for causation, that allowed for the extraordinary wonder of existence. That if anything existed, even in an intrinsic way, that view would block the whole idea of intrinsic existence, would negate, would block the ability of dependence. So when he presented that particular interpretation of Nagarjuna, along came a philosopher called Bhavaviveka, who said, that's ridiculous. If you are saying that, you are, as I explained before, leading us to nihilism. You are basically saying that nothing exists at all. Because if things do not even exist in an intrinsic way, then there's no basis for even claiming existence. And following him by a couple of 100 years, I believe, came Chandrakirti, who said, no, Buddhapalita was right, Bhavaviveka was wrong. The only way in which we can truly, correctly explain Nagarjuna's idea of dependent arising is if we negate even intrinsic existence. That total quality of dependence out of which things exist, the total quality of cause and effect, and particularly, well, I should explain, there are considered to be three levels of dependence. There is existence that depends on causes, so that is one level of dependence. There are things that exist dependent on their parts. An orange, if you to call something an orange, it has to have all the parts that become the basis for our saying, oh, that is an orange. The most subtle form of causation, of dependence, is that things exist in dependence on our naming them, on our attributing an existence to them. So that a thing, and this is the most subtle form of dependence, this desk, which no one in the room is going to say, no, that's not a desk. We all agree that this is a desk. However, if you were to take the top of the desk off, you would say, well, that's the top of the desk, it's not the desk. And if you were to take the drawers here out and remove them, you would say, those aren't the desk. Those are the drawers of the desk. And if you could go on and remove all the parts of the desk, and you wouldn't find anything that you would say, oh, that's the desk. The desk is a bunch of parts upon which we all agree to give the name desk, to name, to designate desk. There is nothing inherently desk among those parts. So the desk is this sort of dependently arisen phenomenon, and it's not dependent on its parts only. It's most importantly dependent upon the fact that we all agree that this is a desk. So this is designation. This is designated dependence, which is the sort of basis for Chandrakirti's presentation of a negation of any intrinsic quality of desk, any independent or inherent quality of desk. So again, the notions that I'm explaining, that I'm describing here, are all not only philosophical notions that would have been developed over centuries from when Nagarjuna came along and presented his Madhyamika view to when Buddha Palita explained that that view as negating even intrinsic existence, to Bhavaviveka saying, no, you cannot negate intrinsic existence, you can only negate true existence. And let me talk about, when Bhavaviveka came along and said, Buddha Palita has gone too far, when he said, if you go as far as Buddha Palita is saying, you are stepping into nihilism. When he said that, the whole, the idea, which, as I describe it with my very limited and superficial understanding of it all, sounds quite evident that he was right. But when they talk about, you surely studied the rope and the snake. Now, if you see a rope curled in a corner, you can think that it is a snake. However, due to the fact that it has no quality of snake about it, it's not going to bite you. The snake, so there is a difference between a rope and a snake. And the argument is whether it is an intrinsic difference or not, whether that difference exists from its own side. And this is where Bhavaviveka said, listen, if you are removing that snakeness to the snake, you're removing any difference between snake and rope. And yet the snake will bite you and the rope won't. So, when you think about that, there's a certain amount of validity in Bhavaviveka's argument. Well, Chandrakirti came along and said, well, yes, it's true that the snake is a snake and the rope is a rope. But even there, you can give the name snake to the rope and the name rope to the snake. There's nothing in the snake that is necessarily snake. Even if you look among the parts of the snake, you're not going to find a snake. And it was this whole other level of the basis for naming that Chandrakirti brought to it. And also his explanation that were you to attribute any actual quality of inherent, or let's say independent snakeness to the snake, that inherent independent quality of snakeness would negate the snake's dependent arising, the snake's ability to evolve, the snake's ability to be a snake, so that the existence of any phenomenon is actually possible due to the fact that it lacks any kind of independent existence. Every aspect of its existence is dependent, mutually dependent. It's a dependent arising. So these are the subjects that in Nalanda were, as I say, discussed over centuries, evolved as ideas through the debates that were taking place at Nalanda, and were meditated on by the members of Nalanda, who actually experienced the deeper and more subtle understanding of their own existence as a result of the meditations that they were doing. So these are the very deepest practices that were engaged in by the members of Nalanda, and what this, to keep on going with this most subtle view, what this most subtle view, the Madhyamika Prasangika view that Chandrakirti established, that Buddhapalita first put forward, that Baba Viveka then challenged, and that Chandrakirti then clearly explained. This view, as I say in respect to the snake, this view really challenges to the point of eventually negating the existence of any kind of self, any the whole the view of anatma, the view of shunya. The shunya that is talked about in Buddhist philosophy is really the emptiness of self, of atma, and that emptiness of self would be the shunya of self. The shunya of atma would be anatma. So that's why the Buddhist view is of anatma. And these are the steps that this philosophical view of anatma went through in Nalanda, not only as an intellectual concept, but as the subject of meditators. So how are we doing for time? 4:30. We started at 3:30. So I don't. Would this be a good time to discuss? Yes? Okay. All right. So I'll try to sort of bye-bye. No, will I open things up to any questions or remarks that you might have? Yes. So you're making a distinction between the phenomena that exist within existence and existence. So I'm not sure whether one could even claim that there might be an existence separate from the existence that exists within existence. Existence is made up of existence. And not only is existence CE made up of existence TS, is that right? Am I doing it right? There is no basis for talking about existence free of existence, right? So that existence CE is dependent upon existence TS. So existence CE is a dependent arising. empty of any intrinsic quality of existence. Yes? You?
I'm trying to articulate this question myself, but in terms of interdependent origination, which I can understand of matter, phenomena of matter. What about the phenomena of mind? Is it Programe? How did mind appear so many different phenomena? How does that?
So there are different levels of mind. So if we talk about the mind that experiences, the mind is often defined as clarity and knowing. So can one talk about a mind free of knowing, of things that are known? There is the objects that are known and the mind knowing have a relationship, and we attribute knowing to the experience of knowing the known. And so knowing becomes dependent on the known that it is knowing. I'm using the same argument I did. And you have all the different qualities of our mental qualities. When I was talking about the visual perception of the bottle of water, the visual perception of the bottle of water, which is a mind consciousness, an eye consciousness apprehending a visual stimulus, the bottle of water, I can't, yes, it's still got a little water in there, is dependent on an outside phenomenon, on the phenomenon of the bottle of water, for there to be the eye consciousness, the moment of consciousness of the water. So that every aspect of mental, of mind experience depends on something being experienced. So I think it would be difficult for us to, in this environment, argue the existence of this bottle with a little bit of water at the bottom of it. Is there anyone here who would take issue with our saying that there is a bottle with a little bit of water in it?
No, but that just creates something else in that bottle.
Absolutely. And in order for us to establish that it's not gin or vodka, we would have to taste it. We would have to use a different consciousness. So you're right that we cannot. You're right. So, but where are we?
No, I was just trying to count from yesterday's conversation to what you said today, and say that, and as she said about the mind, we're all sitting here, and each of us can see that if we don't know that there is water in that bottle. I can think of things that doesn't have to be water.
True. So, I mean, in order to establish that there is water in it, we would have to taste it. I assure you. And then, of course, you have to trust me. It's water. And you know, what you're saying and what I've just said is important. When we are trying to establish truths, we have to be thorough. We cannot say that... and then you get into the sort of karmic element of we, as human beings, view this, the water. They talk about and I suppose that this is true of different Indian philosophical views, that what something is it depends, as I was saying before, on your meriting to see it that way. And so if you have a belief in the different levels of beings within existence, you have the sort of godly realm that experiences everything as being particularly wonderful, for whom water would be nectar. Then you have the sort of lower beings, the hungry ghosts, the pretas in Buddhist sort of cosmology, for whom water would be some kind of impure liquid substance, pus, or they talk about pus. So that which the preta views as pus, that which the god views as nectar, and that which the human views as water is said to be the same thing. And so how you view things, what the sort of karmic predispositions are for experience something, determine what it is that you experience.
But that's the point she made about the mind. So each mind perceives something differently. So where is the...
So there is no true mind. I mean, I thought that the point that you were making about the mind was, isn't there a mind, an objectively correct and true mind? And I was saying, the way we understand it is that the mind is dependent on its experiences. That which the mind is being a mind in respect to. That there isn't a mind in and of itself free of the conscious experiences that consciousness has. So, and if that becomes your understanding of mind, that it is dependent on the objects that it is being conscious of, then it is a dependent. It is not an independent existent phenomenon. It is dependent. It is a dependent origination, and it is that form of dependence that is considered to be the emptiness of any kind of independent mind. That's the Madhyamika view. So, I can only tell you what I've read. It is only when we develop that Buddha's mind that we will know. So it is said that you see, we all have experiences of phenomena as existing inherently, intrinsically. When we see the computer, we see an objective, independently existent computer sitting here. We attribute certain qualities to it. We do not attribute them to our mind experiencing it. The Buddha sees, experiences, knows the the dependent nature of the computer, knows the emptiness of any intrinsic quality to the computer, But he also can experience the what you are experiencing. And he can do so simultaneously. In other words, the quality that a Buddha has is to see the conventionally existing computer that we are all experiencing, as well as that quality of emptiness of the computer simultaneously. I'm giving you the party line, because I have no idea what the Buddha would see if he saw a computer here. So I don't think that we should think of them as being separate, because I don't think anything works if we separate them totally. But what we are trying to understand is that things do not exist in the inherent, independent way that we normally see them to exist.
This is not a question but comment. In Advaita Vedanta Drigdrishya Viveka, there's a first verse in Drigdrishya Viveka that Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drishyam Tad Drishyam Drig Tu Manasam Drishya Di Vrityam Sakshi Drig Eva Natu Drishyam. That means when we are perceiving that water bottle through our eyes, it is not the object we are perceiving, but we are getting ready for the existence of our eyes. And when through the eyes of our mind,
regarding Nalanda and how we can talk about the aspect of art from it, because I'm sure it was incorporated in some sense. And another thing that I think I will be glad, maybe not now, but if maybe in some lectures in those 2 days, we can hear maybe more about that. That is one thing. And another thing which I'm also interested is about the questions of depth.
Yeah.
Yes, like there is Bardo Kodol, and I'm not sure it's Bardo Kodol just related, because this is Tibetan book of death, but Nalanda is a little older, but I'm not totally sure about it, because Padmasambhava, I think I'm not mistaken, and that is a little later than when Nalanda started. But what about those questions? Were they talking about? I'm sure they were, but what we can hear about that.
Okay. So.
And maybe a little of comparative, because Mondrian, for example, and that era, Kavinsky, and like they were in some sense related to Theosophical Society, which is in some sense inspired by Buddhism. So maybe a little, I don't know, I will be happy to hear it. And you are a photographer, so you know a lot about that, so I think it will be maybe nice to hear about that.
Is that something you're going to continue, or could you expand a bit at that point? If you're going to continue, that's fine.
Okay. Well, so do I talk? I had led up through these different philosophical schools to the establishment of anatta. It was a process by which we saw that there could be no self to the computer, there could be no self to any phenomenon that is dependent on parts, that is dependent on designation, that is dependent on causes. And so that is the meaning of no self, non-self. The Atma, that self, which is usually attributed to me, is also I don't know whether in ancient Indian philosophy we talk about the self of a computer or the self of, but the idea of something having a being, computerness, it is that computerness, that independent quality of the computer, that independent quality of me, that is being negated through these different philosophical views. We come to a point where there's no basis for it. There's no for attributing a self, a quality of independent existence, and it is that arriving at that point where there is no basis for it, that there is no possibility of something existing if it exists in this independent way. That is where no self, anatma, comes from. Does that help?
Well, maybe at the end of the sessions, I'll try and figure it out.
Okay. Art. You know, the whole notion of art as being an individual individual's portrayal of, reflection of some deeper notions of in an ancient context such as Nalanda, the art would be the artistic presentation of the Buddha. And you can see there are these sort of lines that are followed in order to make the face, the hands, or whatever perfect, so that that visual depiction reflects the enlightened qualities of the Buddha. And if you think of the 32 major, 80 minor marks of the Buddha, that would also be part of the artistic depiction of a fully enlightened being. So I think that the role of the artist would have been one of working towards, as well as possible, presenting these qualities. And this was painting these things were particularly refined from Nalanda in Tibet, where you had the Thangka painters and the statue makers, which you also had in Nepal at the time, and still have today. I don't think that there would be a form of art in the sense that we have it in our 21st century artistic world of individuals wishing to express themselves in individual ways. No, I think that you sublimate yourself to a discipline in order to best depict what it is that you're trying to depict by the form that you are using, whether it's sculpture or painting. And within the world of Tantra, within the painting of mandalas and the making of mandalas, that is an area where the masters are particularly strict about adhering to the absolute measurements and shapes and forms of that which is being depicted by whatever form. That's really all I can say about art.
So, art itself, the expression, and through art, it can be one way of expressing individual oneself. But another thing can be the ecstatic state while making art, which I believe is timeless. It was happening 2 centuries ago, or 2 million years ago, or today. In that sense, I was thinking if there is, if that was part of the whole, like we, for example, now we take it or as an art, as something serious, professional right now, or as a childish, but not as the expressiveness of a human, which is quite natural, and we need to dance. We need to, we have the need towards expressing ourselves, or through the expressiveness of ourselves. There are some also ecstatic experience. So that I was not sure if there is. It was in that sense that they were painting and.
So I don't believe that there existed a milieu, a forum, a situation where the individual ecstasy would be expressed artistically and where that would be cultivated, where that would be even permitted, especially not in a monastic situation. I mean, within a monastic situation, we're not allowed to listen to music. We're not allowed, we are meant to refrain from indulging in anything that tickles the senses that might lead to any kind of such experience. In the belief that by disciplining and by forming your knowledge, your feelings, your instincts, or whatever, through this discipline process, what you will express in painting or in sculpture making, whatever, will be not some self-expression, but an expression of the divine, of the whatever that you are trying to do. But it's not arrived at by letting it all hang out. It's arrived at.
Yes. So this was the Nalanda University was opposite of tantric. Like the school of
Tantra existed in Nalanda as well.
Okay.
Tantra was very much. Tantra is.
Yeah, but especially when when one woman becomes okay, that I think.
So Tantra is specifically using the mind to taking it to deeper and more subtle levels to experience these qualities of selflessness. All of these practices are meant to be preparing you for a moment at the end of your life when this experience of emptiness happens naturally. It happens due to the dissolution of the coarser elements of self, and you are experiencing that lack of self. So the preparation for that natural experience that takes place in death is very much part of practice that will take place
The very, very basis of this inquiry that you started right in the beginning is to see what is there, what exists there, so that you reduce your attachment and therefore you have spaces. So now science also has gone the same way. Particle physics or Newtonian physics follows what Vairashina is saying. The quantum finally is what Prasanika Madhyamika or maybe it's Vatantrika. But we don't see, even with so much knowledge, we don't see any reduction of attachment. If at all, we see a lot more. So is there something lacking in the science model that doesn't add up? I mean, anyone with quantum, any any background in quantum should technically feel as in Sanika was that there's nothing there inherently that exists. We don't find that reduction of attachment or anything else that comes from it.
I have a good friend who's a philosopher in Paris, and she was telling me about the world of philosophers, and they're quite a bunch of French philosophers, and they're committing suicide, and they're having many affairs, and it's just a very lively world. And I said to her, but doesn't their pursuit of philosophy lead them to a way of life that would sort of keep them from that and way we live. And of course, our lives in the monastery are totally formed by what we are studying and experiencing and working and deepening. But I have the feeling that anyone who's really, truly there in his or her views philosophically, whether in the East or in the West, would have their experience of life affected. And I have the feeling that any really cutting-edge physicist who was coming to understand the molecular atomic structure of phenomena would cease to have a clinging, or would at least have that clinging sort of break with his intellectual understanding. So I think it's all a question of to what degree you're there, to what degree we are really immersing ourselves in it as from the start we become a monk, and then we start to study this stuff, and we deepen it. We've decided to become monks, which is already dramatically mad. While the scientist is pursuing his interest in science and arriving there. He hasn't made a moral decision on how he wants to lead his life, and then finding these facts and all sort of bolster. But no, I think that it's up to each and every individual how he or she leads his or her life based on the facts and based on the experiences. So I
But
think
is there something, is the difference the fact that it's only intellectual learning?
I don't know. I'm not